I thought my marriage was a sanctuary. I thought the man who promised to protect me was my biggest ally. But the day I found that hidden folder on his laptop, the day I saw my own face, everything changed. Now, it's his turn to be afraid. I remember the way the light hit the kitchen counter, soft, golden, and deceptive. I was 23, barely a year into my marriage with Mark. He was 32, successful, charming, and the man everyone said I was lucky to have. We lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs of Atlanta, a life that looked like a dream from the outside. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares when you look too closely. I was a freelance graphic designer, and Mark was a high-level consultant. He was always traveling, always on calls, always working for our future. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? I grew up in a home where trust was everything. I thought the man who held me every night would never break my heart. But there were red flags, small, jagged pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. He was always protective of his laptop, a silver MacBook that he treated like a religious relic. It's company policy, Maya, high-level security, he'd say with that smooth, rehearsed smile. I never questioned it, until the night of our first anniversary. He had gone out to pick up dinner, leaving his laptop on the desk. It was open. Just a crack. A sliver of light, beckoning me. I shouldn't have looked. I know that now. But something, a cold shiver down my spine, told me that the man I loved wasn't who he said he was. I sat down, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I opened the lid. The screen flickered to life. There, on the desktop, hidden behind a folder labeled Tax Returns 2022, was a subfolder. It had no name, just a series of numbers. June 21st, 25, my birthday. I clicked it, and the air left my lungs. It wasn't tax returns. It was me. Hundreds of photos. Photos of me sleeping. Photos of me working in my office. Photos of me at the grocery store. But they weren't the kind of photos a loving husband takes. They were clinical, surveillance style. And attached to each photo were notes. Subject shows signs of suspicion. Subject's bank accounts are now fully linked. Phase 3, asset liquidation, beginning soon. I felt sick. The room began to spin. I wasn't his wife. I was a project. A target. I was being hunted by the man who shared my bed. I heard the garage door open, the sound of his car. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking so hard I could barely move. I retreated to the kitchen, standing there with a fake smile, while my soul was screaming. For the next week, I lived in a haze of terror. I had to play the part. I had to be the good wife while I slowly gathered my own evidence. I realized Mark didn't love me. He had married me for my inheritance, the money my grandfather had left me in a trust that matured on my 24th birthday. He was planning to drain it and leave me with nothing. Or worse. I started digging into his consulting firm. It didn't exist. It was a shell company, a front for a professional scam artist who targeted young, wealthy women. I found 3 other women. 3 other wives across the country, all of whom had lost everything. 2 had disappeared. 1 was in a mental health facility, broken by the man I called my husband. The emotional breakdown came on a Tuesday. Mark was at the gym. I was alone. I sat on the floor of our walk-in closet, clutching my wedding dress, and I just sobbed. I let out all the pain, all the betrayal. I thought about the nights he told me I was his soulmate. I thought about the children we talked about having. It was all a script. A lie, designed to steal my life. How could you? I whispered into the darkness. How could you look at me and see a transaction? But then, the sadness turned into something else. Something cold. Something sharp. The girl who was afraid died in that closet. The woman who wanted revenge was born. I found his second phone, the one he kept in his gym bag. I unlocked it using the code I'd seen him type. 0-6-2-1, my birthday. Even his passwords were a mockery of our life. I saw the messages. He was talking to a woman, his real partner. They were laughing about me. She's so easy to manipulate, he wrote. The trust fund opens in 3 weeks. Then, we disappear. He wasn't just stealing my money. He was planning to frame me for a crime, a series of financial frauds he'd committed in my name. He wanted me in prison, or gone, while he lived in luxury with his mistress. The peak of my pain was seeing a photo he'd sent her. It was a picture of me crying, taken through the crack of the door while I was mourning my father's death a month ago. He'd captioned it, "The golden goose is mourning. Almost time to pluck the feathers." I stopped crying then. I wiped my eyes, and I started my own folder. I didn't go to the police. Not yet. I knew how he operated. He had friends in high places. I needed to destroy him, publicly and legally, so he could never crawl out of the hole I was digging. I contacted the other wives. I found them, the ones he thought he'd broken. We met in secret, a sisterhood of betrayal. We shared our stories, our evidence. We realized we were his undoing. I used my graphic design skills to create a digital trap. I gained access to his tax returns folder again, and I didn't just look. I edited. I planted a virus, a tracker that would trigger the moment he attempted to transfer my trust fund. On the morning of my 24th birthday, Mark brought me breakfast in bed. He was so sweet, so attentive. "Happy birthday, beautiful," he whispered, kissing my forehead. "Today is a big day for us." "Yes," I said, looking him straight in the eyes. "It really is." He went to his office, and I followed him, silently. I stood outside the door, watching through the gap. He opened his laptop. He logged into my trust account. His eyes were wide with greed. He clicked "Transfer All." The screen didn't turn green. It turned red. A video began to play, full screen. It was a compilation of his victims. The 3 wives, speaking directly to the camera, detailing every lie, every scam, every moment of abuse. And then, my face appeared. "I know about the folder, Mark," I said in the video. "And so do the federal investigators sitting in the driveway." He tried to shut the laptop, but I had locked the system. The speakers were blaring, at full volume, the sound of his own voice from the recordings I'd taken. The house was surrounded. I walked into the office. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, while the color drained from his face. You're crazy," he stammered, backed into a corner. "I loved you, Maya." "No, Mark," I said, my voice as cold as ice. "You loved the money. But you forgot one thing. I'm the one who designed your cage." The police burst in. He was handcuffed in front of the neighbors, the perfect husband exposed as a common thief. His assets were frozen. His mistress was arrested at the airport. The calm resolution came a month later. I sold the house. I gave the furniture to charity. I stood in the empty living room, where I once thought I'd raise a family. I felt light. The money was back in the trust, but more importantly, the truth was out. I'm 25 now. I live by the ocean. I don't look for folders anymore, because I don't need to. I'm the one in control. To everyone watching, never ignore the red flags. Because the truth might just set you free, but revenge will make sure you're never hunted again. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, tell your story in the comments. Don't let them win. Subscribe for more stories of justice and revenge.